I think I've been saying to y'all that my one sadness about our early closing was that I was really excited because of the fullness of the work that you were all doing, to see how the show would have changed over time. So I'm interested to hear from you all, like how was your experience in the play shifted over a run of almost 3 weeks? And anyone?
Anyone can go. I mean, can I say my favorite thing watching it and then
Mhm.
give you guys some time to think about your answers? But I mean, something that started like this week, Jude, and I sent the picture of it in our group chat, but when Awesta grabs Raz's hand, I think it started out, I don't know if it started out as an accident or you actually made this decision, but Awesta had thought she slammed the laptop on Raz's hand, and then grabbed it and was like doing a really cute rub. But then it was like so beautiful. And so, because she yells at him, it's the moment where she says, Awesta, I always make you say the line, but it's like, you'll either
You will.
stay with your visa. Oh, go ahead.
I forgot all the lines already. You will leave
Good.
without your visa, or you will stay without your head.
And then she slams the laptop, and then she gets like really soft with him, and it's like very brotherly and sisterly. And it's just like watching that, I literally was like, I've seen the show a million times. I know what's gonna happen, but I started tearing up because it was just so beautiful. And like if you have a sibling seeing that kind of thing, it's just like, I don't know, it's just pretty.
Oh, wow. Thank you. How about other folks?
I think even being able to do stuff like that, like this far into the run, was exciting because you knew that everyone was going to have your back and that you could try stuff and it was going to be okay. And you'd figure out a way forward if it didn't work. And if it did work, they would, hop on with you. So that was exciting. That makes it feel alive and collaborative, and like you're not, the framework is there, and how you fill it can be different every day, really. Depending on like what you always used to say, what are you bringing in with you today?
Hmm.
And it's exciting to be in a space where that is so allowed. And I think, well, Raz and I were talking about this actually yesterday. I didn't feel so much like there were any, like, even with that hand thing and all that, that was all just organic and it sort of happened on stage. But there are times when you think like, okay, I want to try this and I want to do that, or I want to do this moment completely differently. And I think there was enough variation for me this time that I had sort of done all the things I wanted to do. And I was just excited to see like how deep that could continue to go. If I'm already coming at it at this certain level, how can I just create more depth and more depth and more depth in the choices that at this point are sticking? So that was just, now it'll always be a mystery.
Yeah, and right, that's to me speaks so beautifully to what the joy of this work is, to get to like just continually excavate something that already feels very familiar and very full, and that you trust. And it's just I keep thinking about how much trust y'all brought into the room and into the process from kind of day one, in the work. So to know that you were able to continue to excavate from that place, is very gratifying. Was there anything for anyone else that like things that you discovered, and even like things you maybe discovered about your character that felt new and fresh and completely different from where we started on day one together? Right.
Yeah, I think one particular thing that stood up for me throughout the run is, compared to the rehearsal process, we understood collectively how BB is important to Tarun, oh my God, I'm already like saying Tarun wrong, Tarun. Um, and that was like standing out for me throughout the rehearsal process. Like that's the big chase for my character. Like that would make, as you were saying, Jude, like in many different moments in your notes, that that is going to make my character one of like most relatable to the audience. Like he's not just a brat, like keeps like going at Afia, like keeps jabbing Afia all the time. It's just like not this one note. There's a reason behind that comes from love, and
Mhm.
like incredible love towards BB. But one thing that stood out throughout the run is the moment with Javed, when Afia tells me that they beat him at the hospital. And I remember really like specifically in the rehearsal that you were saying that's big news for you, because I'm really going at Afia saying like, oh, he works for Taliban. Like, what is he afraid to keep us here? And then she comes with that big news. That started getting to me more and more throughout the run, and that really made the moment with Jawed at the final scene, me thanking him for like it hasn't been easy to keep me here. That just it was incredible to realize like, oh my God, there are like really deep emotional moments that are like hidden in the play. And towards the last like couple of runs, like 4 or 5 runs, like me thanking him was harder than me talking about BB in some moments. Like I couldn't get the words out of like thanking him. Literally, like it was just so hard to thank him. And yeah.
Wow. Yeah, like the discovery that the consequences of his generosity to you are literally being worn on his body now in the beating that he suffered like just hours before. Yeah, it's something I've been reading a lot about the play, like since finishing working on it, and reading a lot of the criticism of other productions, um, and just how universally praised this play has been, and the way it's talked about in really political, like large scale political ways. And one of the things that uh, and it's why I still feel shy about talking about this play and what we um explored together in it, was because I realized that for us in the room, there was a way in which you had to put aside the large scale politics, at least from my point of view. You had to put aside the large scale politics in order to build the play, to build the action of the play, to put that aside and actually just deal with the people in the room,
Mhm.
and how they are navigating, how much they love each other, and what the consequences are of their love in the face of all of the really dire, dangerous challenges that they're facing in the larger political moment, that have real specific stakes for their lives together. And for me, that it was interesting to understand the difference between being an appreciator of theater and a creator of theater. That there's a way in which we, right, like we see all those large forces, but at the end of the day, we have to come back to the human, the really human immediate consequences. And so to hear you talk about that, Raz, about the way in which that moment became bigger and deeper and fuller and more devastating each time, or more weighty each time you heard it, um, reminds me, right, that at the end of the day, we trust that the story that we're telling can hold the size of all of that politics,
Yeah.
but we actually have to attend to the immediate humanity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
A little one more thing I just wanted to add to this. Actually, it's
yeah.
different, but um I have been like Braden knows he's in the backstage, like behind, like right behind the set, and I'm like never in the dressing room. I'm like behind the set all the time, pacing.
Mm.
And I have been listening to Afia Javed scene. I have been listening to Laila and Afia scene, and it was incredible when audience responds to something in their scene, how it actually amplified what I'm going through behind the scenes, like right before I go in, like the information that Javed was giving to Afia, like they beat BB, and then there's like someone in the audience like, oh no, they did not, and then I'm like, oh yes, they did, like they did like beat my wife up, and like everything like emotionally just immediately amplifies. So this is to say, like audiences response in real time has been adding to the stakes so much for me in so many ways.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah.
huge. That's huge.
Well, they
Yeah.
also add to like the comedy of it. Like when you guys would have these jokes and stuff like that, I felt like those shows were the best where you had the range of like laughter and like, when people were reactive to it. And then later on finding it's what makes it so much more devastating when you have, you find like the end
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
There
I'll
was
piggyback off of that and just say, one of the things that I've already shared with the cast is like as the as their monologues just they're so beautiful, Tarun and Joe Wade, and at the end that button is hilarious and it gets the audience every time, right? You're just saying that because I'm wearing blah 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 and you made it. And he's like, maybe, and I need to come in all my glory, And so in some ways I'm like, I have to work against that. I can't actually be enamored by your really, really gorgeous, lovely work. I have to like, I'm behind the door and I'm trying to not be like, oh my gosh, they're so good. That's so lovely, like, um,
But that's what made it such like a good contrast of
it
like, because
has to
then
be. Yeah, it has
my
to
favorite
be.
was when you did that at one point and someone was like, wow, like you audibly heard someone go, wow, in the audience, because it's such like two opposite moments of like the boys are being really slow and like patient and with
Yeah.
each other and just like hearing each other out, and then
It's this
low.
really tender moment of sharing between them that we haven't seen at all, really. So it's like this, yeah. Anyway, but with that, I think in talking about framework and talking about relationship, the thing that you said, Jude, that I think is important is like the attention wasn't to the backdrop, right? And if we're pointing the lights here, we then actually miss the humanity and it becomes easy, I think, for the audience to distance themselves, right? I don't see myself in these people. I don't see myself in these relationships. But I think when we're saying this backdrop is always here, it hasn't gone away. It will, it's been here for years. But we want to bring focus to relationships that are real. A first-time mom who's navigating how to be a first-time mom, who's not getting enough sleep. A brother and a sister, a wife and a husband dealing with infertility, like that there's so many things outside of the horror and the terror and the terrible circumstance, the horrible backdrop,
Mm.
But I think that's what this play does differently and why I was so moved by it is because it doesn't give you permission to check out and to say this is a political play. It's yes and yes, the policies, the whatever that's happening here. It's not to dismiss it, but to say, I want you to look at him. I want you to see a person and not just be able to be like, it's just another article, something else that's happening in the world. Or so that's the work that I think is beautiful, is to make you think, to make you reconsider, to make you more thoughtful about these political ramifications and things that are happening. But I don't think that would have happened if the human connection and the relationships are not real, if you don't empathize with the characters. The last thing I'm going to share is Awista was talking about the framework of, it's been built and then you're sort of exploring with it. That last scene with, it's mostly with Essen really holding me back. But the last time that we did it, every night it's different, right? Like we're just playing off of each other, all four of us. But Essen especially because he's also literally maneuvering all of the fight choreo and physicality and whatever. But the last night that we did it, I one of the lines, I didn't forget it. It's just in the emotion of it all came out while he was at the door, which had never happened before. I had said his medicine, and he's like, "What?" And I thought for a second, I was like, I think Essen thinks I forgot my line. I did not forget my line. I can't get my words out. You know, I'm like, "Ugh,"
Oh,
choking on my own, whatever. And so I said it to him at the door, but it was this really beautiful, it was just a millisecond of a moment of like just connecting with him at the door before he ran out. But I don't know why I was moved by that. Like it was just, I don't know. I can't really put it into words, but it was just like a really quick sort of shared moment. And then lastly, the thing that has become more real to me is my baby and my husband. Like I just feel I've been thinking a lot about the family dynamics, right? Like, what do I do with Nabil when he's not sleeping? And what are some of our fun activities that we get to do? And I had early on in the process researched like developmental stages of kids at 5 months versus 4 versus 6 months, just to kind of get an idea because I'm not a parent and I don't have children. And so kind of trying to dig into, oh, right, this is where they would be in the developmental stage. But I just feel like the thing that's been wrenching for me is that Amir feels really present.
mm,
He's real to me, you know, like his, yeah, the story of how we met, what our relationship is like, how we complement each other, how he's very different than me. Anyway, I love him. I know he's not real, but I haven't quite let go of that yet.
And how big a part of a family, of this family, he is. Um, he's like the missing member of this family that we get to see on stage, and we get these really oblique references to him, right, through you, not understanding what is actually going on with him in the moment until we finally find out what's going on with him in the moment. And it's so devastating. It's so devastating. Yeah. Wow. That's amazing, y'all. I should ask more questions.
Lo, would you say Salima was really real to you too? Salima, your bestie.
I have a point of view about Salima that's been there from the get-go.
Mm, mm.
Where I'm like, really? We're just gonna casually talk about how she knows all the things?
Mm.
Uh, hmm. I'm gonna ask it. Who knows? Why not? Is there anything that you know now that you wish you knew in week 2 of rehearsal about these characters or about this world? Yeah.
Uh, yeah. I wish yeah. I was so bent on trying to like work against the funny because um it's my go-to to protect and not go to a place where it's like hard to come back. So I commend Lo for and Westall and Raz for going somewhere every night and then coming back. Um not because I can't, but because I've done it so much this year that I'm spent, I think. But that's, just a part of the job. So to go to funny is like my way to like recouping and having being just a golden retriever on stage with the people that you work with. And but I was trying to work against it so hard that I forgot to how actually hilarious he is. And his attempts to make his wife laugh are, that's human, where we're like the person that we love the most is the person that we cherish their laugh the most. And I think um uh yeah, I'm sorry, Jude. Like I completely played into it. I started taking time in dialogues, saying stuff, and having moments with Lowell. And because audience applause is like a drug. Once you're in it, there's no way out. After was like it feeds. Um yeah, and I wish I knew how easy it would be to be on stage with Raz in that scene. Like it was just we literally just existed on those monologues. Because actors like their moments, and I loved the moment.
It's amazing how we can think of our way in relative to what we understand as a character as an obstacle to actually being the way in. And you use that word of like that idea of yourself as like a golden retriever on stage. And it's interesting to me the ways in which that showed up in the humor, yes, but also in really different, beautiful, and nuanced ways in the devotion that you found in Jawade for Afia. There are those quiet moments that the two of you have together in which you're attending to her is so exquisite for the audience. It's really, really quiet. And right, and even the way it's staged, you're upstage of her sitting behind her. She's kind of facing away from you. So we just get to see you take her in with so much love, so much care for the pain that she's in, right? Considering what you are trying to achieve together in the family that you are trying to create, and the recent loss that you've had. And so, right, like sometimes we end up discovering maybe I should just be a little gentler with myself and trust the impulses that are innate to who I am, and know that those things can then be shaped towards something, as opposed to trying to deny who we are in the service of a character, to go, nope, at least give ourselves some amount of time to let all of it play, knowing that we can, turn the equalizer knobs up and down as necessary, and knowing that everything that we contain actually can be in the character. And I think that's something that y'all found over time with one another, again, because of the trust building that you did, that right, like one of the things I think everyone talked about yesterday was about how much joy we were able to find with one another in this play that can feel, right, really emotionally weighty, heavy, right, like something heavy to carry. And I think, right, like Essen, your golden retriever was central to us having permission to play with one another in that way. Like, right, like those moments where everyone would just break out laughing on stage, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Right, in the middle of a rehearsal, and it's like something's going on, and you just let it ride, let the joy ride, knowing that at some point we're gonna pick the rock back up and continue carrying it up the hill. So just a testimony to, yeah, everything that we are belongs. It all belongs. It really does. Yeah. Anybody else? Anything else that folks wish they knew? And yes, including about our own artistry.
I wish that I knew more about, I think, Amir and Nabil, like the information that I feel like I have now versus what I had in the beginning. And it's not that they weren't fully real to me. It's just I feel like the depth is so much deeper. And I shared with Jude secretly yesterday that there was something that popped out in the script to me yesterday before rehearsal. And so I was kind of excited to try it out. It wouldn't have been, I mean, again, it's still in our framework, but it was just like a new discovery for me. It was just sort of like, and I'm sure this happens with other actors where you're like, I've read this play and the script a million times. How did I miss this? Like, how is this now? Anyway, so it's just a little bit of, it was a question. It was a question that I wanted to like try out, or a curiosity or whatever. But I just feel like Amir and Nabil I'm having like character hangover. I haven't been able to, they're not out of my system. And Layla is still sitting with me. But yeah, that would be it. The other thing that's not tied to this, but I wanted to actually mention, is because this was an aha moment that I am so glad did not happen at the end, but did happen in the beginning. And that is this moment with Jawed and Layla, where I say, come, talk to me, Jawed. And he does not talk to me, literally says nothing. And so that moment to me was just sort of like, there's a lot said in the unspoken, in the fact that I say, come talk to me. And he sits and does nothing. And then I'm like pulling information. So big day, uncle. One word answer. Yes. Did you get to hold it? And so anyway, but I feel like that has become more and more and more alive between Jawed and Essen and I, and Jawed and I. But I'm really glad that didn't happen yesterday, but was sort of like I just felt like such a delicious thing to sort of sink my teeth into. That happened early, kind of in the process of like, wait a minute, I invite you to talk, you weirdo, and you're not talking. And she's a weirdo, and then they're complaining about me chatting. No one else is chatting, Anyway, but just sort of, it's interesting how that empowers, in some ways, sort of empowers and gives me something. The nothingness gives me something to do, right? I have to work harder.
Right, and that's so much of the withholding that we're working right into, working against in the play, has so much to do with how we are trying to love and protect one another in the story, right? From the consequences that are looming outside the door, outside the windows in the world. Yeah. Essen!
Yeah, Essen.
Sorry, guys, I have to go see my parents upstate. So I'm heading now. I have to catch the train at 12:45, so I should get to Grand Central.
Oh.
I love you all so much.
We love you, Essen.
Sorry that I'm leaving early. And you're all phenomenal. And one day I will work with all of you again.
Yes.
Yes, please.
I love you all.
Yes.
All right.
We love you. Safe travels. Love to your family.
Oh, I will give them all the love. All right. Bye.
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 I have one last question. What are you taking with you from this experience? We're all going off, right? Like we have this experience of coming together, really building a family together. In a way, right? It's the beauty and the bittersweetness of this work is that we fall in love with one another, right? We kind of have to in order to make something this full feel real on stage, be real on stage for ourselves and for the audience. What do you take at the end of this, and what goes with you, and what do you leave behind as artists? What do you try to leave behind, and what do you take?
I think so. If anyone listens to this, it would be funny to know that yesterday, even though we were all released at 1:20, technically, we still stayed the length of the show and more, and left after 4 p.m. because it was so hard to leave, and we had so much to say to each other that we didn't get to say on stage and emote on stage one last time. But and so we talked about this a lot yesterday, about the experience in the rehearsal room and outside, how impactful that can be to the work that's going on stage. And and to go in with that hope, like you're not always going to get first of all, you're not always going to get a show with just 4 people, and then 4 people that actually like each other, and then a crew that likes each other. So that was just an extra layer of luck and fortune that I think came with this process. But to lead with heart and know that, you know, that's not gonna, that will make the work better, like we talked about, and there's just no reason to not do it if that opportunity is there. I don't know, I'm coming at it from a weird perspective, because I will say, like, I got to, this being the 3rd time, I had sort of a, you know, this magical opportunity where I did a lot of the things I wanted to do, and I tried a lot. So I don't know, I'm a little bit spent in that way. So I got to focus on less on what's on stage, but more on what was happening outside that I could bring with me. And just also, like, speaking of that, with what's happening, you know, in the world, just how fortunate I feel to have this work to be, and how sometimes it can feel really trivial to, like, be an actor and play pretend, and how trivial it isn't, because I believe that that's all energy that you're putting out into the world, and that's coping for not just you but the audience who comes and sees you. The way people were sort of, and it's not about having a hopeful ending, it's just about coming together in a, you know, in a almost somewhat sacred space, and being together for 2 hours and holding each other and having heart for each other and empathy, and reminding in these small pockets of theaters around the world that there's, like, still empathy and there's still humanity. And I think that's, like, the hope that gives us to keep going and to move forward. So I'm definitely taking that with me. That just, it was enforced, and that's really special, I think, because you can be jaded so quickly. Yeah.
Wow, that sacred space. Thank you, Awesta.
Mhm.
I'm taking 2 things with me. One is there are still sincere people out there in this industry, but sincerity doesn't come for like right off the bat. Everyone has their doubts going into a room. Everyone has their concerns going into a room, and expecting someone to be sincere from the get-go is not logical. But there are really like Awesta said, there are circumstances that that can create a trusting environment that everyone speak their minds and not scared of saying things that they actually really want to say. This is to say, like, there has been so many moments that I would never tell something maybe to Awesta of how I thought about something, and then, like, along the way on one walk back home, I'm like, you know what, I thought this about you, and that only, like, or you know what, I thought this about your character, or whatever, like, whatever. But that wouldn't happen if I didn't trust her. You know what I mean? I would never make, like, I would never have fun with people's lines, or I would never, you know, like, if it wasn't a trustful environment. That's one. And number 2 is what we talked about yesterday. I'm in the process of learning there are different techniques, like there are different actually walks of theater, like acting. Like there's, like we were saying yesterday, like there's showing the emotion and there's actually living the emotion. And none of them necessarily are one is better than the other or whatnot, but just coming to terms with the fact that there's an audience out there that would like to follow the story, like, you know, point like from A to B, B to the C, and that is very satisfying for them. And there's an audience out there that wants to see you going through something. So, like, before I was very resentful, like, oh my God, the guy on the stage is not going through anything. Like, well, how is it interesting, you know? But who am I to say that's not interesting? But it's just like a learning of, like, there are different ways, you know? So, yeah, that's it.
It's so beautiful because I think, we think so much about like approaches to acting and approaches to making theater. And one of the things I think when we're in the profession long enough, we discover is that at the end of the day, we're all building our own technique. We're all building our own approach and we can only do what feels most authentic and honest to us. Right. And at the end of the day, we're the steward of what our instrument's capacity is. Right? No one else can tell us. Right. And I think it's one of the beautiful but also hard things about our profession is that in some ways we walk that journey alone because only we can make that decision. We can be in such solidarity and discovery with other people about in the experiences of the work that we do, but at the end of the day, we are sovereign in that regard, or at least we should be. I'd like to believe that we should be, right? That we have a richer, more exciting landscape of the profession when artists are able to be sovereign actors in their own artistry. So to see to hear of you speaking to your evolution as an artist is really satisfying. Thank you, Raz. Lo, how about you?
First, I want you to know you're going to have to answer the same question on your end, Jude. You are out. That's right. You're not off the hook. I think for me, there are a few things. One, it's just a reminder that we can be that light wherever we go. Meaning like the things that we appreciated about this space are things that we can advocate for in other spaces. It's not going to always be the same, right? Especially if not everyone is as open or generous or whatever the word is. But do you know what I mean? I think it gives me hope to be like, we can be the change that we want to see. I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but it's just that inspires me to say, we created the space that we created on stage. We did that. That was a collective story that was told, right? But it's actually the same off the stage. The space that we created in the rehearsal, that was because of Jude and Essen and Raz and Awasta and Lo and Hunter and Braden and a whole slew of other people, who were intentional about safeguarding that space and making it welcoming and safe for actors to do the work that is so challenging that they have to do in a very short amount of time and then give it away, right? Like it's just so incredibly demanding. So I share that as like, it's both a challenge and an affirmation of like, let's move as theater artists into those spaces, having this very beautiful recollection and memory of like the power of creating a space that is healthy, right? Where the drama is on the stage and nowhere else in your life. What's interesting is I feel like for me, this has been the weirdest show just for very personal reasons. I think I shared already with you all, I had COVID during callbacks. And then I had a emergency surgery. It just was so wild. And in some ways, I'm actually even more affirmed of like, thank you, God, that in the most unexpected of ways, I could not have been in better hands, period. Do you know what I mean? Like this would have been horrific if I was with, under a different regime, if you will. So I'm so grateful that I just felt so cared for. Hunter has been like just amazing, both he and Braden, incredible. And Jude caring for me as a person, not just as an actor, right? So I felt that. I didn't feel like, oh no, I'm not worried about my lay law. It was like, I'm worried about Lo. And also, you know what I mean? But it wasn't like, that's not the priority. Anyway, I'm just very grateful that if it were to happen, that if my nightmare were to happen, it happened here. So that's the second thing. And then I would say the third thing that's actually very technical is post-show self-care. I think I'm navigating that right now of your body, even if it is just thinking on memories that were traumatic, relives the trauma. And that's just from the power of thought, right? And so there is a toll on the body, there's a toll on the voice, there's a toll on the emotions, there's a toll spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, all of it there that exists. And so I'm just thinking through, how do I take care of this, not just during the show. I think during the show was clearer to me. Post show, I think I'm just trying to move in grace of like, I'm not going to put a timeline on this. I'm not going to pressure myself to feel a certain way. But I'm really grateful for the space that was created off stage as much as I was. And I feel like that space is what allowed us to tell the story that we were able to tell on stage. So that's the credit to the leadership and the team of this project. And I'm so grateful.
Wow. Lo, thank you so much for that. You know, one of the things that has always been, I think, one of the sweetest pleasures for me in this process, and this speaks to I think what everyone has already said earlier about like the way we attend to one another and create a space that feels attentive, and therefore safe and empowering. For me, one of the sweetest delights has been to watch y'all watching each other work, and feeling from the sidelines how people would be sending attentive, supportive energy to one another, right, on stage. And that started really immediately in the rehearsal process. And then it became the walks home that people were taking together, in which conversations like what you described, Raz, could happen. And then it was people on breaks having meals together, right? Like, so that what we actually built was an ecosystem that extended beyond, right, rehearsal hours. And to me, that was beautiful, because to me, that was about creating an accumulation of an experience. And, you know, Lo, what you say about the toll that this work takes on the body, which I think is something we don't talk about enough in the profession, right? What it means to carry this humanity, right? We're literally taking on the life of another human being onto our own life, grafting it onto our life. And my experience as an actor is that it takes at least as long as the process it took for me to develop the character. It takes at least that long to relinquish it completely, if not longer, right? And I think it's something that we don't talk about enough in how we train artists in the profession, right? That what is the work that we do to actually let go of this thing that we literally took into our tissues and into our bones, right? And carried around with us for months, right? If you're counting from when we first auditioned for this character, which is when that process of taking on begins, to the final curtain call, we're talking about months of carrying this other human being in us. And it takes time. And I think we are ripe for having more conversation and more facilitation of artists being able to do the work of release of that of the character work that they're doing. I think it's really important. So I'm so grateful that you brought that up. And then I will attempt to answer the question before we say goodbye. What I'm taking are two affirmations. One, that if we do the work with care and respect and attentiveness, the result is bound to be greater than the sum of its parts. That, right? On our own, each one of us is special and wonderful and unique and brings things that no one else can to the work. When we all are able to create a space where we can really fully see all of what everyone else is bringing in, what we create is multiples of the sum of all of that human, beautiful, raw, full, urgent, delicate energy that is just our lives that we bring into the work. And that was really affirmed for me in the ways that I experienced y'all building a family together, because it is a story about a family, and y'all built a family together in a way that, right, no other cast doing this play could do. And I think that's the magic of the work we do, right, is that there is no definitive Tarun or right, Afia or Laila. Like, there is no different. We get to create it. We get to invent it. Yes, there are lots of places of landmarks of who these people that help us define who those people are. But at the end of the day, as artists, we are the filter, right? We are the only filter that the audience has for who these people are and how they live the circumstances of the story together. So to have seen that with y'all, how you supported one another in that experience of mutual discovery, to me was really, really magical. And to me, it taught me something about what the work is, because so much of the way we experience the profession is that we have to come in done with answers. We have to know all the answers. We have to have done all the research, right? And then we have to show our work. This is what it is. And I think the magic of the theater is that that's not true. We get to discover together, and we get to discover on day one of rehearsal. We get to discover in tech. We get to discover when our first audience arrives, and we get to discover all the way through the run to the very last performance. We're still discovering. That's the magic, that I, as an audience member, should be able to come to the first performance and to the last performance and feel like I was seeing two really different experiences. Right? That's the temporal bittersweetness, right? That is central to our human experience that can only be experienced in live theater. And y'all affirmed that for me, that this thing is still vital to human beings in how we figure out how to be in civic life with one another, right? How we build communities with one another, how we build national identities with one another, right? It actually it's a fractal process of one-on-one interactions that accumulate. So I'm taking that. Yeah, and I'm taking an immense amount of gratitude for your artistry. That's what I'm taking. Hunter, you got to answer it too. I'm sorry.
I knew it was coming. Well, I will say something that I, as the stage manager, I get to do that. Jude, have seen the show from rehearsals and, the read through, and seen how it develops the whole, like, that's why I love this job and this position. Because it's really cool. It's like, it literally is my job to watch the show and see you guys get to be so amazing every day and just different. And I love, we joke about it when something is forgotten, but finding those fixes of like the show, it's just so fun. Like, how do we solve this? Oh no, like in previews when the rice and chicken is not in the fridge, how do we fix that? Okay, maybe we send Joade in, we do what we got to do. But it's really cool. And I mean, for this space in particular, compared to other shows that I've worked on, is just like the amount of trust that I feel like the actors have put on Braden and I, and like getting to just talk, and like, like for each one of you, I feel like I have a different relationship of just like, like so much gratitude and so much love and so much admiration for your guys' work, and for like, like even you, Jude, like everyone, I just have a different love for a different reason. Like Raz and I get to joke about, different moments in the show, and it's just so funny. Like getting to like I still laugh at like, just, making jokes, and I feel yeah, exactly. And just like, I don't know, like it's really cool, and I get to take away. I feel like as a stage manager, a lot of the times it's easy just to be like, okay, sit in the corner and like take notes, take blocking notes, whatever. But I feel like, you guys let me be a part of this world and get to like talk to you about your characters, or even outside of the world of like, just putting on this production. You know, because each production is different. It has its own challenges and stuff like that. But to get to be emotionally and, you know, like get to be a part of that in that way, it makes it more like I feel more part of this. And also just like learning about a different culture is it's also like it's just such a beautiful culture, and getting to hear like Oesta and Humaira talk about, you know, their experiences, and hearing the speakers in the very beginning when we were doing the table work. And yeah, I don't know, it's just it's been such a wild ride, but you know, it's yeah, I get to take those experiences and these new friends, you know, these New York friends, and Lo and Jude and all of you guys are, I mean, Braden, and I mean, even, you know, everyone, like the Interact staff has been great, and getting to like work with them, and just, you know, we couldn't have done it without them. So
Wow. Beautiful. Thank you. Y'all, we have to say goodbye for now. I know that this is but for now, because I'm so clear that I have to be in creative and life space with all of y'all again. Yeah, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful, and I'm so looking forward to how we are next in one another's lives. Thank you. Thank you for your incredible work, for your incredible artistry.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you guys so much. And thank you, Braden, if you see this. Thank you,
Braden,
Sarah.
I hope you're watching. Thanks for keeping us sane.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
We love you
Thanks for the
guys.
audiences too. Like such
oh yeah.
That
I
Philly
love you guys.
city of brotherly love.
I love you, sister. I love you, Layla, even if you hate me.
I don't hate you. I adore you.
You ruined her life.
So much, Jude. Hunter, #1 stage manager that I've ever met. Love you guys.
Icon.
Love you.
Love you guys.
Okay, I'm gonna stop the recording.